So I've got my colors laid out here on my gray palette, and I just want to show you that the cap, nice and big, easy to open, but look at the consistency of the paint. Nice and thick. And you can see, now I poured these out about 2 minutes ago, and they leveled out to a nice smooth puddle. Okay, so if you want to work nice and thick, use the paint right away, but it does level out a little bit. If you want to keep the paint nice and thick, you can add the gel medium gloss, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. So what I thought I'd do is I would work with this limited palette that I have and create some charts just so you could see how the paint works. There's only one issue that I have. It's not so much an issue, but the Quinacridone Violet in the DecoArt Premium Acrylics, because everything's interchangeable, for the DecoArt Traditions, it's red violet. Okay, so that's the match. So I'm not sure why they changed the name, but that's the match. All right, so let's first just talk about some of the consistencies of the paint. I'm going to get a palette knife. So I've just have some canvas paper here. Now with the canvas paper, because it's so textured, it'll works well with the thick paints. By adding some gesso to this, you'll smooth everything out. I just want to show you the gesso again. Nice and thick. It's available in black and white, and it'll hold those strokes. So you can have some nice texture in there. And with this gesso as well, you can if you end up running out of white, you can also use this gesso. Nice and thick. I really like this. What I like is that it'll hold that texture. That's the way it's going to dry. So I really like that feature. I'm going to wipe that down. As with acrylics, make sure you clean your tools or rinse your tools out. I'm going to put that aside. And what I'm testing now is to see how long this takes to dry. Put that over here. All right. So the colors, let me get a nice tube here. So with the paints, if you just flip them over, the pigment number is on the tube. So that is really handy when it comes to how you're going to do your color mixing. What's not on the tube is the opacity and all that stuff. What you would usually find on the Traditions, all the information, the properties of the paint, that's not on the tube. So hopefully that's something DecoArt may add in the future. So the pigment number is there, and that's where I noticed that the Quinacridone Violet in the premium acrylics was the same as the pigment number on the DecoArt Traditions. So that's one thing. So if you're doing my designs and you don't either have one or the other, just keep that in mind with the red violet and Quinacridone Violet if you're using my limited palette. So to go over the colors, so titanium white, burnt sienna, yellow oxide, Hansa yellow light, Diarylide yellow, vermilion hue, Pyrrole Red, Quinacridone violet, ultramarine blue, and phthalo blue. Now the orange, they don't have a single pigment orange. So this one here, vermilion, looking on the side, is made with PY74 and PR112. It is a beautiful orange. I did try mixing up. I don't have it here. Oh yeah, I did here. I did try mixing up using the Pyrrole Red and the two different yellows to try to make an orange, and this did turn out nice. For different oranges. This is the actual Paranone orange in the Traditions. I was looking to make something close to that. Wasn't able to, but I do like the different finishes. So for this reason, I chose vermilion. Although it is a mix, to make an orange, I'd end up taking a yellow and a red anyways, because they don't have a single pigment. So, and the Pyrrole Red is a bit more of a cooler red. And they do have a whole bunch of other colors, but this is what I'm going to be using for the limited palette. I'm just going to use I'm using my Aqualon brushes, and we'll start, why don't we make a color chart? So let's start with the phthalo blue, and look how nice and thick that is. Always creating a loading zone. That doesn't change. And you can see how thick this is. Very intense. You can see that it's not going into the pores of the canvas easy. I have to really work it in because it is a thicker paint. If I was using a more fluid paint, then it would just go in right away. And to see the underlying color, nothing changes with that. We always add white. Now, although the texture of the canvas shows that's not a bad thing, so if you don't like the texture of the canvas showing through, just add gesso and then sand it, or just use you know, a hot press paper or something. Then we've got Ultramarine Blue. Okay, we'll take a little bit of white. These are all consistent. I love the feel of these. Okay, and then we'll take our red violet, which is up here. Oh, I think I still have a little bit of white paint left in my brush. Okay. And then the Pyrrole Red, now it's going to be about over here. And also when you're doing your color charts, this is one thing that I recommend all the time when you get yourself some new paints, is to always create a color chart. That way you can see what the properties of the, you know, the paint is. This is the first time I've actually used this orange. So it's a nice orange. There we go. Rinse the brush, and then we'll go to Diarylide yellow. That's about here. And we'll add our white. Okay. And then the Hansa. Yeah, what I've noticed with the Hansa yellow light, it seems to be a little bit more fluid. I don't know if it's because I haven't, you know, shaken the tube enough, or usually with tube acrylics you don't need to shake them, but it feels a little bit more fluid. So I have to keep an eye on that. Then yellow oxide, which actually belongs more in the center. And then burnt sienna, which belongs more in here. Actually, that belongs more up here because it's a neutral. There we go. So with this limited palette, the one thing that you can do as well, by taking Hansa yellow light, we'll go right over here, and a speck of Phthalo blue, you can get your greens. Let me take a bit more paint than that. There we go. You get a nice green. Let's add some white so you can see a true underlying color. And then you can do the same thing with the Diarylide yellow. Only needing just a little bit. And now you're getting all these different types of green. So it's nice that you can, with the learning curve, if you know your color index numbers, that you'll be able to mix using anything. So I do have the color theory videos in the studio, and you can mix your own. So just with these colors, you can create burnt umber, raw umber. You can create raw sienna, various oranges, various greens, various violets, various reds. So you can just by adjusting. By doing your mixing, and the videos in the studio can be used with any paint. As long as you know the color index numbers, you can create these types of charts. So with this as well now, just to show you the neutral. So if we were to take, now I'm going to use Hansa yellow light for this, and then we'll use Ultramarine Blue, creating all three, and then we'll have to make an adjustment, obviously, because you don't always, we don't go by a recipe, so ratios are different. But let's see what this made. This made a nice violet colors. So obviously the Ultramarine Blue and the Pyrrole Red overpowered the yellow. So one thing to do with that, we can just add more yellow. Let's see what we get here by adding more yellow. We get something more of a brown. And we can add a bit more blue. And because this is very dark, so we need to add white to see the true underlying color. Oh, I like that. That's a dusty mauve. I really like that. So by working with the primaries together, I mean, you can get some really nice combinations. And it's just a matter of working with them until you get the neutral that you want. So if I add a little bit more blue and yellow, then the neutral is going to be more on the green side. And this is very similar to raw umber. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry, and then I just want to show you the charts that I made up. So here's some of the charts that I made up by checking out, testing for the thickness. And you can see that they do dry with a satin finish. They do hold the strokes. Okay, they do hold the strokes. And so one thing to keep in mind is when you are painting, if you're painting thick, you need to let this dry. So I did this experiment 3 days ago, nice and dry, and it's held the shape. Now with this one here, I applied the heavy gel medium gloss, gloss. You can see that. See, it held the shape. And then, now if you look at, I don't know if I can tilt this, you can see the shine. Where's the shine? I'm looking at, so look at these ones here. I don't know if you can see the shine there. I added a little bit of the matte medium on this side so you can see the difference. So that's truly matte on here, and this one has a little bit of a shine to it. Okay, there it is, a little bit of a shine to it, and that's very thin, the paint as is, and this is the paint with the matte medium just laid on top. I didn't mix it in with the paint. And here's a nice piece right here, nice dot here, nice and thick. So the mediums, I love the gloss medium. I really like. And oh yeah, and the extender. So the extender, I did an experiment when I first got the paints, poured out the paints like this, and they were workable for about an hour. It was 36 degrees in here with the humidity. It was workable for about an hour, and then I saw a skin just starting to form on here. So just by taking a little bit of water and just misting it like this helps. But you can also add extender. Now, as opposed to the DecoArt extender, the DecoArt Traditions extender, which is liquid, this is in a gel format. So it'll help the paint stay thick. I'm going to get a different brush here. What you can do with this is you just take this and you could add it right into your paint. But what I like to do is, pull the paint out separate and add it in, because I may not want to, there's a lot of paint here. If I add it to the paint, then the whole paint is going to be a little bit more transparent because you're adding something to the paint. So I like to pull it out if I want to use the paint with the extender. That way I can always go back and use the paint as is. So hopefully that makes sense. And then with this here, so I'm going to put this here so you can see that it is a lot more transparent. Let's put a little more on there. Okay, I'm going to rinse that brush. I'm actually going to get a different brush, and I'm going to dampen it, make sure it's blotted really well, take the paint as is, and put that on there. So you can see that by adding the extender, it does make it more transparent. And I can keep pushing this around to try to make it more transparent. Okay, but as is, there we go. And with this as well, now I'm going to get a stencil brush, And I can turn around, and I'm going to put a little bit of paint right there. For dry brushing is something that I like to do. So I'm just going to put a little bit of paint here. And without patting it on the paper towel, I like the way this works for dry brushing. This is without patting it in the paper towel. Because the paint is so thick, it doesn't soak into all the bristles. This is too thick, so if I do it again, load, let's get a dry paper towel, and just get rid of the excess. Then come back in. There we go. Now this is just the Moderna. This is a new line of Royal Langnickle. I'm trying out these brushes. So the beautiful, beautiful dry brush. And you can overlap the layers as well. So without cleaning the brush, because to do dry brush, the brush needs to be clean. If I were to overlap that with a little bit of Ultramarine Blue, pat on a paper towel. And the paint that's one of the nice features about the paint being thicker is that it doesn't saturate the bristles. When I do dry brushing with the fluid acrylics, it's a little bit more challenging. I'm having to blot off a lot more paint. Let's make this nice and opaque, or nice and solid. Okay, and make sure you blot that. Now, what I want to, while this is drying, because I want to show you about the other medium. It's just going to take a little bit of gesso. And again, this is available in black as well. And you know that I like doing all my priming of my surfaces with my number 8 bristle brush, but look how thick this is. Nice and thick. Now I have a blog post about gesso, how I use gesso 3 ways with the DecoArt Media. It's going to be a little bit more difficult with these ones here because it's thicker. So when it comes time to doing my paints, because with the DecoArt Media, what I do is I have 3 containers like this. I have the gesso as is, then I have another container with both the gesso I added some distilled water to make it really thin, and then another container which I took the gesso, left the cap off, and then just kept stirring it for a few hours to really thicken it up. For that version, the really thick one, I don't have to do that anymore. I now can just use the tube gesso because it's much thicker. But it goes on the same way. And this gesso, like I was showing with the palette knife, it's useful when you want to create that textured prime. Because it'll hold the brush strokes. Okay. And just see here, see, starting to dry now, less shine, but you see the strokes are still, the palette knife strokes are still there. So that's still holding. Let me get the other one. Still wet. Okay, all these paints were pure. I didn't add any medium to them. And you can see this is starting to dry here, a little bit wet here. Okay, this is really wet. See, it's held its shape. Okay, so that's going to dry. I'm going to turn this over. And now with a flat brush to show the gradation, let's work with the blue. And ultramarine blue typically is transparent by nature. It doesn't matter the brand. So it's nice for glazing. And then I'm just going to take the dirty color that's here. Create that value scale, work it down. I probably can't see. So all I'm doing is I'm holding the brush straight and I'm working back and forth. Okay, a bit more white. I just like how this paint flows, working horizontal. It's still workable. I can take a bit more blue, add it here. A bit more. So I like how this is workable. Still can keep painting. As with any acrylics, when you're doing your painting, if the paint starts to tack up, you need to let it dry, because otherwise you're going to run the risk of pulling the color up. And I did that. I created a paint study on painting rocks in water with a waterfall. I didn't let the paint dry, and it actually lifted up a little bit. But I showed in the video how to fix it, because that happens to everybody. Okay, so that turned out quite nice. So now I'm going to let that dry, and I'm going to turn this, I'll just go down here. See, this is still wet. That's with the extender. And this is still wet because I used the paint thickly as is. So now what I can do is, if I wanted to create a barrier layer, I can take the matte medium. Okay, this one here, the matte medium, to change the opacity, and just, if I didn't want to add it to the paint, just go right on top. And when that dries, it's going to have a nice matte finish to it. Okay, and then this is the heavy gel medium, the gloss. And depending on what I'm painting, I'm really rinsing that out. Depending on what I'm painting, I will typically use a flat brush when I'm applying the mediums this way. To get smooth coverage. So if you want smooth coverage, flat brush, just go on, and then I can also just take this as is, and that's how it's going to hold. It'll hold its shape like that. That's going to take quite a while to dry, so I'm not going to bore you. I'll just show you pictures. You can see the pictures in the blog post. So here we go. So that'll hold its shape like that. The gesso is still held its shape. And what I'm going to get the heat gun, and I'm going to speed up the drying time of this. There we go. So you can see it has a little bit of a shine to it, not too much, but more a satin finish. And then I can take the matte medium, and I'll just do half. So you can see, so you can add the matte medium directly to the paint, or add it right on top, and it also works as a clear coat. Like that. So that's about it. So, you know, you'll see pictures of this on the blog. So, love the paints. They're good size. They're, let me get the other one. Oh. So the Traditions, oh, hang on, let me get. So we've got the DecoArt Media Fluid Acrylics, which is 1 ounce. The Traditions is 3 ounces, and the tubes are 2.5 ounces. So size-wise, they are a little bit different. And I just got Phthalo blue all in my arm. I'm gonna put this aside to dry, and I just want to show you the last thing about the fluidity. So this is the Phthalo blue. And then actually let's use the same color. So this is the Traditions. Much more fluid. And then I'm going to reach over and get the Fluid Acrylics. Okay. And hold that down. So you can see with the Fluid Acrylics, you know, because it's a lot more fluid, it is running down much quicker. The Traditions, it just went down a little bit till it hit the next part of the paint, which is higher. Now it's not moving. And the DecoArt Americana Premium isn't moving at all. You can see the fluid acrylics are still going. Let's do it this way. It's moving down. That one's moving a little bit. This one here where it's really heavy, just the force of gravity is just looks like it's just kind of folded over just a little bit, but it's not moving. All right, so there you go. So just wanted to do a quick little video just to show you the different things on the paints, and then you can decide whether or not if it's something that you'd like to try. It's really good for fine art. It's priced at a point where it's still economical to use because it's so highly pigmented. You don't use a lot. You can see this here. I can do like 4 or 5 paintings, you know, with the paint that I have on here. So I bought these at Michael's. So, and I know in the United States, I believe Joann's carries it. I'm not sure, but you can go to the DecoArt website and it'll tell you where you can get the paints if you wanted to give them a try. All right, so I hope that you enjoyed this. Let me know what you think about the paints if you tried them. And until I see you in the next video, stay inspired.